They told her she didn't look like she belonged in first class. They said her ticket was stolen. They laughed when she said her father ran the airline. But what the gate agent and the entitled passengers didn't know was that the man they were waiting to impress the CEO himself was standing right behind them, watching every single second of his daughter's humiliation. You think you know what happens when power meets prejudice? You have no idea. This is the story of how one moment of arrogance cost a woman her career, destroyed a billionaire's patience, and proved that sometimes karma doesn't just knock, it kicks down the front door. The fluorescent lights of JFK International Airport hummed with a frequency that usually gave Maya Sterling a headache, but today she was too exhausted to notice. At 22 years old, Maya didn't look like the heiress to an aviation empire. She looked like an art student who had pulled 3 consecutive all-nighters, which was exactly what she was. She adjusted the straps of her battered canvas backpack. Her oversized grey hoodie pulled up over a tangle of curls that refused to cooperate with the humidity. Her sneakers were scuffed, splattered with dried acrylic paint from her final thesis project, and she clutched a lukewarm coffee like it was a lifeline. To the casual observer, Maya looked like someone who might struggle to afford a standby economy seat near the toilets. There were no Gucci logos on her luggage, no Louis Vuitton tote on her shoulder. Just Maya, tired, hungry, and desperate to get home to London. She approached the gleaming silver counter of Stratosphere Airlines, the premium carrier known for its sky-high luxury. The terminal was split into 2 distinct worlds. On the left, a serpentine line of hundreds of weary travelers snaked back and forth, waiting to check bags for economy. On the right, a velvet rope cordoned off a plush red carpet, leading to a desk made of polished mahogany. Priority access, first class, global elite. Maya ducked under the velvet rope. "Excuse me," a sharp voice cut through the air like a whip crack. Maya froze, blinking. She turned to see a woman standing behind the mahogany podium. The name tag, pinned to her pristine, wrinkle-free navy blazer, read Patricia. Patricia looked like she had been born frowning. Her blonde hair was lacquered into a helmet of immobility, and her manicured nails tapped an impatient rhythm against the granite countertop. "The economy line is back there," Patricia said, pointing a long accusatory finger toward the chaotic mass of people on the left. She didn't even look Maya in the eye. She was too busy rearranging a stack of brochures that were already perfectly straight. "I know," Maya said, her voice raspy from lack of sleep. "I'm checking in for flight 802 to Heathrow. I have a seat in... Miss." Patricia interrupted her voice, dripping with that specific brand of condescension reserved for people she deemed beneath her. "This is priority. It is for first class and global elite members only, people who pay 5 figures for a ticket. Not for..." She gestured vaguely at Maya's hoodie and paint-stained jeans. "Students looking for an upgrade." Maya sighed, shifting her weight. She was used to this. Her father, Reginald Sterling, the CEO of Stratosphere Airlines, was a black man who had built his empire from the ground up. He had taught her 2 things: never flash your wealth and never let anyone disrespect your dignity. "I'm not looking for an upgrade," Maya said calmly, reaching into her pocket. "I'm already booked in first class. Here is my..." "I don't need to see your fake pass," Patricia snapped. She finally looked up, her eyes narrowing as she scanned Maya's face. "Do you know how many times a week people like you try to sneak into this line? It's embarrassing. Just go to the back of the economy line before I call security. You're blocking the view for our actual customers." Behind Maya, a heavy sigh signaled the presence of someone else. Maya turned to see a tall man in a bespoke Italian suit checking a gold Rolex. He was accompanied by a woman dripping in pearls who was looking at Maya as if she were a piece of gum stuck to her shoe. "Is there a problem here?" the man asked, his voice booming. "We have a flight to catch, and I'd rather not wait behind the help." Patricia's face transformed instantly. The scowl vanished, replaced by a sugary, terrifying smile. "Mr. and Miss van der Waal, so good to see you again. I apologize for the delay. Just dealing with some debris." Maya felt a hot flush of anger crawl up her neck. Debris. "I am not debris," Maya said, her voice hardening. She slammed her passport and her phone onto the mahogany counter. On the screen was the QR code for her boarding pass. It wasn't the standard blue stratosphere pass. It was black, the obsidian tier. There were only about 50 people in the world who held one, mostly heads of state and board members. "Scan it," Maya challenged. Patricia laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. "Honey, printing a fake QR code from the internet doesn't make you a VIP. It makes you a fraud." The terminal was beginning to quiet down as people sensed the drama unfolding. Travelers in the nearby economy line stopped shuffling their feet and started watching. Phones were raised. The red recording lights were blinking. "I'm going to ask you one more time to scan the ticket," Maya said, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of restraining her temper. "If you don't, you are going to regret it." "Are you threatening me?" Patricia gasped, pressing a hand to her chest theatrically. She looked past Maya to the van der Waals. "Did you hear that she threatened me?" Mr. van der Waal stepped forward, positioning himself as the gallant defender. "Now listen here, young lady. You're clearly disturbed. You can't just waltz in here looking like a vagrant and demand service. This is a private business, not a homeless shelter." "I have a ticket," Maya insisted, pushing the phone closer. Patricia didn't scan it. Instead, she picked up Maya's phone with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated, and dropped it onto the lower counter out of reach. "Hey!" Maya shouted. "Give that back." "I'm confiscating this as evidence of attempted fraud," Patricia announced, loudly, playing to the crowd. She reached for the landline phone on her desk. "Security to Gate 4, immediately. We have a belligerent passenger refusing to vacate the priority area. She's becoming violent." "Violent?" Maya stared at her in disbelief. "I haven't touched anyone. You're verbally assaulting us, Mrs." Van der Waal chimed in, wrinkling her nose. "And you smell like chemicals." "It's paint thinner," Maya snapped. "I'm an artist." "A con artist, maybe." Mr. van der Waal chuckled at his own joke. 2 security officers, their belts heavy with radios and tasers, came jogging down the concourse. They were large men who looked bored and eager for action. "What's the problem here, Patty?" the older officer asked. He clearly knew the gate agent. "Oh, thank God you're here, Officer Miller." Patricia sighed, leaning over the counter. "This girl is trying to force her way onto the plane with a fake ticket. When I asked her to leave, she started screaming and threw her phone at me." "That is a lie," Maya yelled. "She took my phone. It's right there behind the desk." Officer Miller turned to Maya, his hand resting instinctively on his belt. "Ma'am, I need you to step back away from the counter and put your hands where I can see them. I just want to get on my flight," Maya pleaded, her voice cracking. "My father is. I don't care who your daddy is," Miller interrupted, stepping into her personal space. "Unless he's the Pope, it doesn't give you the right to harass airline staff. Now you can walk away, or you can leave in handcuffs. Your choice." Maya looked around. Dozens of eyes were on her. The van der Waals were smirking, whispering to each other, clearly enjoying the show. Patricia looked triumphant, her chin held high, the guardian of the gate protecting the elite from the riffraff. Maya knew she could fight. She knew she could scream that her father was Reginald Sterling. But she also knew that without her phone to call him, and with these men already biased against her, screaming would only get her tackled. "Fine," Maya whispered. "I'll leave. Just give me my phone." "Property of the airline now," Patricia said smugly. "Pending investigation into digital fraud. You can file a claim with the police station downtown tomorrow." "That phone has my thesis photos on it," Maya cried out. Officer Miller grabbed Maya by the arm, his grip bruising. "That's enough. Let's go." He began to drag her away from the velvet rope. The van der Waals applauded politely. Patricia gave a little wave, her smile sharp as a razor. "Have a nice walk home, sweetie," Patricia called out. Maya was dragged past the staring crowds, humiliated tears finally spilling over her cheeks. She was being kicked out of the very airline her father had built to bring people together. But as they dragged her toward the exit doors, a voice stopped the entire terminal cold. It was a deep, resonant baritone that carried without shouting the kind of voice that commanded boardrooms and silenced chaotic shareholders' meetings. "Officer Miller, take your hands off her. Now!" The security guard froze. Patricia's smile faltered. The van der Waals turned around. Standing at the entrance of the jetway, having just disembarked from an arriving private jet connection, was a tall, imposing black man in a charcoal suit. He was flanked by 2 assistants and the airport director. It was Reginald Sterling, and he looked like he was ready to burn the building down. The silence that descended over Terminal 4 was heavy, suffocating. Even the announcement speakers seemed to pause their endless loop of flight updates. Officer Miller, who had been gripping Maya's bicep tight enough to stop circulation, dropped his hand as if he had been burned. He didn't know who the man in the charcoal suit was, but he knew authority when he saw it. This man wore power like a second skin. Patricia, however, was slower to catch on. She saw a well-dressed man, flanked by the airport director, Arthur Pendleton. In her mind, this was just another high-value customer whose travel experience was being ruined by the riff-raff. She smoothed her skirt, forcing her frozen face back into the customer service smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I am so terribly sorry, sir," Patricia said, stepping out from behind the podium and walking toward Reginald Sterling with her hand extended. "We are handling the situation. This individual was attempting to breach security and harass our VIP guests. We are removing her now, so you can board in peace." Reginald ignored her hand. He didn't even look at her. His dark eyes were locked on Maya, taking in her red-rimmed eyes, the tremor in her hands, the way she was rubbing her arm where the guard had grabbed her. "Maya," Reginald said, his voice softening, though the underlying steel remained. "Are you all right?" Patricia blinked her hand, hovering in the air awkwardly. She let out a confused, nervous chuckle. "Sir, I would advise against engaging with her. She's quite unstable. She claimed to have a stolen ticket and—" Reginald walked right past Patricia as if she were a ghost. He stopped in front of Maya. "Dad!" Maya breathed out the fight, finally leaving her body. She slumped, and Reginald caught her, pulling her into a hug that looked strong enough to shield her from a falling building. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Phones that had been recording the crazy girl were now frantically zooming in. "Dad!" Patricia whispered the word, tasting like ash in her mouth. She looked at the girl in the paint-stained hoodie, then at the man in the $5,000 suit. She looked at the airport director, Mr. Pendleton, who was staring at her, with a look of absolute horror. Mr. Vanderwaal, standing by the velvet rope, cleared his throat loudly. He was a man used to being the most important person in the room, and he didn't like being ignored. "Excuse me, sir. I don't care if you're her father. You need to control your daughter. She has been abusive, disruptive, and frankly, she smells. If you want to bail her out of jail, do it on your own time. We have a flight to catch." Reginald slowly released Maya. He turned around. The movement was slow, deliberate, like a predator noticing prey. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Arthur," Reginald said, not taking his eyes off Mr. Vanderwaal. "Yes, Mr. Sterling." The airport director stepped forward, sweating profusely. "Who is this man?" "That is Mr. Silas Vanderwaal, sir. He owns a chain of luxury car dealerships in the tri-state area." "I see," Reginald said. He finally looked at Patricia. "And who is this?" "That is Patricia Halloway, our senior gate agent for the priority lane." Reginald nodded. He walked over to the mahogany counter, the same one Patricia had been guarding like a fortress. He picked up the heavy landline receiver Patricia had used to call security, looked at it and set it back down. Then he looked at the space behind the counter. "Where is my daughter's phone?" Reginald asked quietly. Patricia's throat had gone dry. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. I confiscated it. Per protocol. Suspected fraud." "Give it to me." Patricia's hands shook uncontrollably as she reached under the counter and retrieved the device. She placed it in Reginald's open palm. Reginald handed the phone to Maya. "Check your boarding pass, Maya. Show it to Mr. Pendleton." Maya unlocked her screen. The QR code was still there. The black background, the obsidian status. Arthur Pendleton leaned in, scanned it with his own handheld device, and the machine let out a cheerful ping. A green light flashed. "Valid?" Pendleton announced, his voice trembling. "Seat 1A, Obsidian class, paid in full." Reginald turned back to Patricia. The silence stretched out agonizingly long. "You said she had a fake ticket," Reginald said. "You said she was a fraud. You called the police on a paying customer because she was wearing a hoodie." She didn't look," Patricia stammered, her face flushing a deep, blotchy red. "Sir, you have to understand. We have standards. Stratosphere Airlines prides itself on an image. She didn't fit the profile. I was trying to protect the brand." Reginald stepped closer. He towered over her. "You were trying to protect the brand. Yes, exactly." Patricia latched on to the excuse. "I was just doing my job." Reginald smiled. It was a terrifying expression. "Patricia, look at the tail of the plane outside that window. What does it say?" Patricia looked. It's the Stratosphere logo, sir." "And do you know who founded Stratosphere?" Patricia looked back at him. She looked at the structure of his face, then at Maya's. The realization hit her like a physical blow to the stomach. Her knees actually buckled, and she had to grab the counter to stay upright. "You," she whispered. "You're Reginald Sterling." "I am," he said. "And the brand you were protecting, I built it. I built it on the principle that excellence is about service, not snobbery. I built it so that a man who looks like me or a girl who looks like her could fly across the world with dignity." He turned to the security guard, Miller, who was slowly backing away. "You dragged my daughter across the floor," Reginald said. "I was following orders, Mr. Sterling," Miller pleaded. "Patricia said she was violent." "And you didn't verify?" Reginald asked. "You saw a young black woman and assumed the worst. You didn't ask for ID. You didn't check the ticket. You just grabbed." I... Miller had no words. "We're not done," Reginald said, his voice dropping an octave. Not even close. Most people thought the story would end there. The CEO reveals himself, the bad employee gets fired, and everyone goes home. But Reginald Sterling didn't become a billionaire by only looking at the surface of problems. He looked for the rot underneath. Arthur, Reginald commanded, close the gate. No one boards Flight 802 yet. But, Mr. Vanderwall sputtered. This is ridiculous. I paid $12,000 for these seats. You can't hold the plane hostage just to lecture your staff. Mr. Vanderwall, Reginald said, turning his gaze on the car dealer. If you say one more word, I will ban you from this airline for life, and I will have you escorted out of this airport by federal agents for interfering with an aviation investigation. Do you understand? Silas Vanderwall's mouth snapped shut with an audible click. His wife, clutching her pearls, looked like she might faint. Investigation, Patricia squeaked. Mr. Sterling, please. It was a mistake. A terrible lapse in judgment. I can pack my things. I'll resign right now. Resign? Reginald laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Oh, Patricia. If only it were that simple. You see, there's something that doesn't add up. Reginald pulled a sleek, ultra-thin tablet from his inside jacket pocket. He tapped the screen a few times, accessing the Stratosphere mainframe with override credentials that only 3 people on Earth possessed. Maya holds a confirmed ticket for Seat 1A, Reginald said, reading from the screen. She checked in online 4 hours ago, but when she arrived at your counter, you claimed the ticket was invalid. The system, Patricia lied, sweat dripping down her temple, ruining her makeup. The system was glitching. It showed an error. Did it? Reginald tapped the screen again. Because I'm looking at the back-end logs right now. The system didn't error, Patricia. You manually overrode her check-in. The crowd gasped. Maya looked up surprised. She thought it was just prejudice, but this was something else. At 1:42 p.m., Reginald recited user ID Falloway accessed the manifest. You flagged Seat 1A as no-show and released it back into the inventory. Then 30 seconds later, you assigned Seat 1A to a new passenger. Reginald looked up from the tablet, his eyes piercing through her. You didn't kick her out because you thought she was a vagrant. That was just the excuse. You kicked her out because you needed her seat. He turned to the Vanderwalls. Mr. Vanderwall, you and your wife were originally booked in business class seats 12A and 12B. Correct. Vanderwall shifted uncomfortably. Well, yes, but we requested an upgrade. An upgrade, Reginald repeated. But first class was full. Seat 1A was taken by Maya. Seat 1B is taken by a diplomat. There were no seats. Reginald walked over to the computer terminal behind the desk. Patricia shrank away, as if he were radioactive. He tapped a few keys on her keyboard. And yet, Reginald said, here on the local terminal log, I see a manual upgrade processed for Mr. Silas Vanderwall into Seat 1A at 1:45 p.m. 3 minutes after Maya approached the desk, he spun around to face Patricia. You sold her seat while she was standing right in front of you. I didn't sell it, Patricia cried, tears finally streaming down her face. I was just trying to accommodate a global elite member. Reginald raised an eyebrow. Because the upgrade wasn't processed through the payment gateway. It was processed as a complimentary operational upgrade. That means the airline got $0 for it. Reginald walked slowly toward the Vanderwalls. Mr. Vanderwall, did you pay the airline for that upgrade? I paid, Vanderwall insisted. I paid cash. Cash. Reginald stopped. Stratosphere Airlines is a cashless carrier. We haven't accepted cash at the gate since 2015. The silence that followed was deafening. The pieces clicked into place for everyone watching. "You paid her," Reginald said, pointing at Patricia. "Cash, under the table. She kicked my daughter off the plane, humiliated her, and had her assaulted by security so she could pocket a bribe and give you the seat." "That's a lie," Patricia screamed. "He's lying." "Search her bag," Reginald said to the airport director. "You can't do that," Patricia shrieked, clutching her purse. "Actually," Officer Miller spoke up, sensing a chance to save his own skin. "If there is suspicion of a crime committed in a secure federal zone, we can search personal property." Miller stepped forward, eager to redeem himself. He took the purse from Patricia's resisting hands. He dumped the contents onto the mahogany counter. Lipstick, keys, a wallet, and a thick white envelope. Miller opened the envelope. He pulled out a stack of crisp $100 bills. $2,000, Miller estimated. Reginald looked at the money, then at Patricia. "You sold a $12,000 seat for $2,000 in cash. You stole from the company. You defrauded a passenger. And you discriminated against a young woman based on her appearance to facilitate your theft." Reginald turned to the crowd, addressing the people recording on their phones. "Make sure you get this part," he said clearly. He turned back to Patricia. "Patricia Holloway, you are fired, effective immediately. But that is the least of your problems." He signaled to the airport director. "Arthur, call the Port Authority Police. I am pressing charges for grand larceny corporate fraud and filing a false police report regarding the assault claim against my daughter." Patricia collapsed into the chair, sobbing hysterically. Reginald then turned his gaze to the Vanderwaals. Silas Vanderwaal looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor tiles. "Mr. Vanderwaal," Reginald said, his voice dangerously calm. "Bribery of airline personnel is a federal offense. It compromises flight security. By paying cash to bypass the manifest protocols, you created a security vulnerability." I didn't know," Vanderwaal stammered. "I thought it was a tip. A fee." "You knew exactly what it was," Reginald said. "Officer Miller, detain Mr. and Mrs. Vanderwaal until the police arrive. They are not flying today." "You can't do this," Mrs. Vanderwaal screeched. "Do you know who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," Reginald said, turning his back on them to put his arm around Maya. "You are the people who just lost your global elite status. Permanently." As the police sirens began to wail in the distance approaching the terminal, Maya looked up at her father. She was still shaking, but a small smile touched her lips. "You didn't have to go that hard, Dad," she whispered. "Yes," Reginald said, kissing her forehead. "I did. Because next time, it might be someone who doesn't have a CEO for a father, and I need to make sure this never happens again." But the nightmare wasn't quite over. As the police arrived to handcuff Patricia and the Vanderwaals, a man in a rumpled suit stepped out of the crowd. He held a press pass. "Mr. Sterling," the reporter shouted, "this is going to be all over the news by tonight. But isn't it true that Stratosphere Airlines has been facing allegations of profiling for months? Isn't this just a symptom of a culture you created?" Reginald paused. He looked at the reporter. He realized that firing Patricia wasn't enough. The rot went deeper. The system that allowed Patricia to think she could get away with this, that was the real enemy. "You're right," Reginald said to the reporter. "And that is why the cleanup isn't finished." He looked at Maya. "Ready to go home?" "Not yet," Maya said, staring at the empty computer terminal where Patricia had stood. "Dad, she wasn't working alone. When she deleted my ticket, she texted someone." Reginald frowned. "What?" "I saw her," Maya said. "Before the Vanderwaals even walked up. She texted someone. She said, 'Target acquired. Phase 1 complete. This wasn't just about selling a seat, Dad. I think they knew I was coming. The color drained from Reginald's face. If that was true, this wasn't just corruption. It was a setup. The private jet ride back to London was usually a time for Maya to sleep, but the plush leather seats of the Stratosphere 1 felt like a cage. She sat across from her father, who had been on the phone for 3 hours straight. Yes, I want a full forensic audit of the JFK terminal logs, going back 6 months, Reginald barked into his satellite phone. And find out who Patricia Halloway was communicating with. Subpoena her phone records if you have to. I want a name. He hung up and rubbed his temples. The plane was cruising at 40,000 feet, safe above the clouds, but the storm was down below. You think it's someone on the board? Maya asked, picking at the seam of her jeans. Reginald looked at his daughter. She had washed her face and changed into fresh clothes from her carry-on, but the shadow of the humiliation still lingered in her eyes. The merger vote is next week, Reginald said, his voice low. Stratosphere is acquiring Horizon Air. It's a move that will make us the biggest carrier in the world, but half the board opposes it. They think I'm overextending. They think I'm getting too emotional, too focused on the passenger experience, and not enough on profit margins. So they target me? Maya asked, incredulous. To what rattle you? If you had been arrested, Reginald explained, if the headline, CEO's daughter arrested for assault at JFK, the stock would dip. The shareholders would panic. They would say I can't even manage my own family, let alone a merger. It would be grounds for a vote of no confidence. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cabin's air conditioning. Patricia wasn't just greedy. She was a hit man. Reginald's phone buzzed. He picked it up, read the message, and his jaw tightened. We have the text logs, he said. You were right. She sent a message at 1:42 p.m. Target acquired, and she received a reply at 1:50 p.m., right when she called security. What did the reply say? Reginald turned the screen toward her. The message read, Make it ugly. We need footage. Who sent it? Maya asked. It's a burner number, Reginald said, but the geolocation of the phone when the message was sent, it pinged from a specific address in London. He paused, a look of betrayal darkening his face. Where? The Kensington penthouse of Julian Thorne, Reginald whispered. My chief financial officer, my best friend. The Stratosphere headquarters in London was a glass needle, piercing the sky, a monument to modern aviation. Reginald didn't go to his office. He went straight to the boardroom on the 40th floor, where the emergency meeting he had called from the plane was about to begin. Maya walked beside him. She wasn't hiding in a hoodie anymore. She was wearing a sharp black blazer her father's assistant had brought to the tarmac. She looked every inch the heir apparent. They burst through the double doors. The room was filled with 12 men and women in expensive suits, sitting around a table that cost more than most houses. At the head of the table sat Julian Thorne. Julian was a silver-haired fox of a man, charming, brilliant, and currently looking very comfortable in Reginald's chair. Reginald. Julian smiled, standing up, but not moving away from the head of the table. We weren't expecting you back so soon. We heard there was a disturbance at JFK. Is everything all right with young Maya? He looked at Maya with a smile that didn't reach his shark-like eyes. Reginald didn't return the smile. He walked to the side of the table, threw a file folder onto the polished wood, and pointed at the projector screen. Play it, Reginald commanded his assistant. The screen flickered to life. It was the security footage from JFK. Not the grainy stuff, but the high-definition feed from the cameras behind the counter, the ones only security had access to. The board watched in silence as Patricia sneered as she threw Maya's phone as she took the cash from van der Waal. But then the video cut to a split screen. On the right side, it showed a timeline of text messages overlaid on the video. 1:42 p.m. Patricia target acquired. 1:50 p.m. Unknown. Make it ugly. We need footage. The room went deadly quiet. This was a setup, Reginald announced, his voice echoing off the glass walls, designed to destroy my reputation and tank the stock price right before the merger vote. Julian chuckled, shaking his head. Reginald, really? A rogue employee and a bratty passenger. It's hardly a conspiracy. It's bad PR, certainly, but the burner phone that sent the orders, Reginald cut him off, was located at 14 Kensington Palace Gardens at the time of the incident. Julian's smile froze. The other board members turned to look at him. 14. Kensington Palace Gardens was Julian's home. You tracked my phone, Julian hissed, dropping the facade. That's illegal. I tracked a device interfering with my airline's operations, Reginald countered. And I found a rat. Julian sat down slowly, the confidence draining out of him replaced by a cornered, vicious desperation. So what? Julian sneered. So I tried to push you out. You're weak, Reginald. You're obsessed with dignity and ethics. The van der Waals. They are the kind of people who keep us in business. They pay premium, and you arrested them. You're bad for business. The shareholders know it. I have the votes to oust you, scandal or no scandal. Do you? Maya spoke up. It was the first time she had spoken in the boardroom. Julian looked at her with disdain. The artist speaks. Go back to your finger painting, darling. The adults are talking. Maya pulled a sleek black USB drive from her pocket. Actually, while you were busy plotting, I was busy looking at the financials. Dad gave me access to the raw data on the plane. She plugged the drive into the console. The screen changed. It showed a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts. You said the airline was losing money on the priority sector. Maya explained, her voice steady. That's why you wanted to cut costs and raise prices. That's why you hated the merger, because the audit would expose the books. She pointed to a highlighted column. Stratosphere didn't lose money. You were siphoning it. Every time a complementary operational upgrade was processed, like the one Patricia gave van der Waal, a kickback fee was deposited into a shell company in the Caymans, Blue Sky Consulting. Maya looked at the board. Blue Sky Consulting is registered to Julian Thorne's wife. A collective gasp went around the table. This wasn't just corporate maneuvering. This was embezzlement. Millions of dollars. Reginald looked at his old friend with pity, not anger. It wasn't about the merger, Julian. It was about covering your tracks. You needed me out so you could bury the evidence. Julian stood up, knocking his chair over. You can't prove that... I don't have to, Reginald said calmly. The forensic accountants are already downstairs, and the police are in the lobby. Julian looked at the door. 2 officers from Scotland Yard were standing there waiting. Julian Thorne, the lead officer said, stepping into the room. Please come with us. As Julian was led away in handcuffs, shouting threats and obscenities, the boardroom fell into a stunned silence. Reginald took his rightful seat at the head of the table. He looked at the remaining board members. We have a merger to complete, he said, and we have a reputation to rebuild. Maya. Maya stood up. I have some ideas for a new marketing campaign. It starts with the truth. The arrest of Julian Thorne didn't just make the evening news. It stopped the financial world in its tracks. The sight of Stratosphere Airlines' silver-haired CFO being led out of the glass headquarters in handcuffs, his jacket pulled over his head to shield him from the flashbulbs, was the image of the year. But for Maya and Reginald, the removal of the snake was only the beginning. The poison was still in the system, and purging it would require a reckoning that no one, least of all Patricia Halloway and Silas Vanderwaal, was prepared for. 3 weeks after the incident at JFK, Patricia sat in a small, windowless interview room at the district attorney's office. The air smelled of stale coffee and floor wax, a far cry from the lavender-scented climate-controlled bubble of the priority lane she had ruled for a decade. She wasn't wearing her pristine navy blazer. She was wearing a grey tracksuit that had seen better days, and her roots were showing. Without the armor of her uniform and the height of her podium, she looked small, shrunken. "I was just following orders," Patricia repeated, for the 100th time, her voice trembling. She looked at her court-appointed lawyer, a tired man named Mr. Klein, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Mr. Thorne, he sent the text. He told me to make it ugly. I was afraid for my job." Across the metal table, the assistant district attorney, a sharp woman named Eleanor Ross, didn't even look up from her file. "Ms. Halloway, we have the text logs. We know Julian Thorne asked for footage, but nowhere in those texts did he tell you to solicit a bribe. Nowhere did he tell you to falsify a police report. Those were your improvisations, your initiatives." Patricia swallowed hard. I can testify against him. I can tell you everything about the upgrade scheme." Ross finally looked up. Her eyes were cold. "We already have Julian. We have his hard drives. We have his offshore accounts. We don't need you to catch the shark, Ms. Halloway. You're just the bait that got caught in the net." Ross slid a piece of paper across the table. "Grand larceny, wire fraud, filing a false instrument. You're looking at 5 to 7 years in a federal facility." "5 years?" Patricia shrieked, standing up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "For $2,000, this is insane. I have a life. I have a condo." "You had a condo," Mr. Klein muttered, finally speaking up. "The airline is suing you for civil damages to their reputation. They've already put a lien on your assets. Patricia, you need to understand the gravity of this. You didn't just steal, you became the face of corporate discrimination on a global scale. The video of you mocking Ms. Sterling has 80 million views. No jury is going to pity you." Patricia slumped back into her chair, burying her face in her hands. She thought about the Vanderwaals, how they had sneered at Maya. She had wanted so desperately to be part of their world, to be the gatekeeper who decided who was worthy. Now she realized with a sickening lurch to people like Julian Thorne and the Vanderwaals she was just the help. And now she was the scapegoat. "I'll take the plea," she whispered, tears leaking through her fingers. While Patricia faced prison, Silas Vanderwaal was facing a different kind of prison social and financial exile. The global elite status wasn't just a travel perk for men like Silas. It was a currency. It was how he signaled to his clients that he was a man of importance. When Reginald Sterling publicly revoked his status and banned him for life, it sent a signal to the entire business community. Silas Vanderwaal is radioactive. It started with the audit. Following Reginald's tip-off about the bribery, the IRS took a sudden intense interest in the cash flow of Vanderwaal Luxury Auto Group. If he was using cash to bribe airline staff, what else was he using cash for? The investigation revealed that the cash upgrades were just the tip of the iceberg. Silas had been cooking the books at his dealerships for years to fund his lavish lifestyle. 6 weeks after the incident, Silas sat in his mahogany-paneled office, a room he had designed to intimidate customers. Now it was empty. His secretary had quit 2 days ago after her paycheck bounced. The phone, which used to ring non-stop with buyers wanting Porsches and Maseratis, was silent. The door opened, and his wife entered. She wasn't wearing her pearls. She was wearing a travel coat and carrying a suitcase. "Where are you going?" Silas asked, his voice hoarse. He poured a drink from a crystal decanter, his hand shaking. "My sister's in Vermont," she said, not looking at him. "The bank is seizing the house on Monday, Silas. They're taking the cars. They're taking everything." "It's a misunderstanding," Silas roared, slamming his glass down. "I can fix this. I just need a bridge loan. I'll call." "You have no one to call," she snapped, turning to face him. "Do you know what happened at the club today? The doorman wouldn't let me in. He said our membership has been terminated. Do you know how humiliating that is? To be turned away by a doorman." Silas flinched. It was the exact same feeling Maya must have felt at the airport. The irony hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "You did this," she spat. "Your arrogance. You just had to have that seat. You just had to make a scene." "I was defending you," Silas argued weakly. "You were showing off," she corrected. "And it cost us our lives." She walked out, the click of her heels echoing down the hallway. Silas watched her go. He looked out the window at his car lot. A tow truck was pulling up to repossess the flagship Ferrari in the showroom window. He slumped into his chair. He had paid $2,000 for a seat in first class. In the end, it had cost him $50 million and his marriage. While the old world was burning down, Maya and Reginald were busy building a new one. The headquarters of Stratosphere Airlines underwent a transformation that was more than just cosmetic. The closed-door culture of the Julian Thorne era was abolished. Reginald moved his office from the penthouse suite to the 3rd floor right next to the operations center. He wanted to hear the phones ringing. He wanted to see the crew schedules. But the biggest change was Maya. She hadn't returned to art school to finish her thesis. Or rather, she realized her thesis wasn't a painting, it was this. Reginald appointed her as the interim director of customer experience. The board, the ones who remained after the purge, were skeptical. They whispered that it was nepotism. They said an art student couldn't run a corporate division. Maya didn't argue with them. She worked. She spent 2 months flying, not in first class, but in economy. She sat in the middle seats. She ate the foil-wrapped food. She talked to grandmothers, students, soldiers, and exhausted parents. She filled sketchbooks, not with drawings of landscapes, but with diagrams of legroom sketches, of more intuitive boarding processes and designs for uniforms that made the staff look approachable rather than militaristic. Her first major presentation to the board was titled "The Dignity of the Middle Seat." She stood at the head of the table, wearing a blazer she had designed herself, sharp, but made of a soft, breathable fabric. "We have spent 20 years marketing ourselves as an airline for the elite," Maya began, projecting an image of the old velvet rope at JFK. "We told people that unless they paid $10,000, they were debris. That word was used to describe me. And if they treat the CEO's daughter like debris, imagine how they treat the grandmother, visiting her grandkids." She clicked the remote. The screen changed to a new concept art. It was warm, colorful, and inviting. "Luxury isn't about exclusion," Maya said, her voice ringing with the same authority her father possessed. "Luxury is about how you feel. We are going to redesign the terminals. No more velvet ropes. No more segregation at the gate. We will have zones, yes, for boarding efficiency. But the visual language of us versus them ends today. She unveiled her plans: wider seats in economy-free high-speed Wi-Fi for every passenger, regardless of ticket class, and a new training program for staff centered on empathy and de-escalation. "This will cost millions," a skeptical board member grumbled. "It will make billions," Reginald interjected, standing up to support her. "Because people go where they are respected. We are going to be the first airline that treats every ticket like a VIP pass." The vote passed. The Stratosphere Reborn initiative was launched. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Maya stood at the entrance of JFK Terminal 4. It was the same building, but it felt like a different planet. The oppressive fluorescent lights had been replaced with warm circadian rhythm lighting that mimicked natural sunlight. The harsh metal dividers were gone, replaced by planters filled with real greenery that acted as natural sound barriers. But the biggest difference was the check-in area. The mahogany fortress was gone. In its place was a sleek, circular welcome hub. Agents didn't stand behind high podiums looking down on people. They stood at open counters eye level with the passengers. Maya walked toward the hub. She was wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt, her hair loose. She carried her old backpack. She wanted to test the system one last time, anonymously. She approached a young agent. The name tag read Sarah. "Good morning," Sarah said, smiling. It wasn't the fake plastered-on smile Patricia used to wear. It looked genuine. "Heading to London today?" "Yes," Maya said. "I'm running a bit late and I have a bag to check. I'm in economy." In the old days, this would have earned her a sigh and a point toward a long line. "No problem at all," Sarah said, tapping her screen. "We have a new express drop-off right here, and I see you're in seat 42B. That's a middle seat. The flight isn't fully booked today. Would you like me to block the window seat next to you so you have a bit more room to stretch out?" "No charge." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. "You can do that." "We're encouraged to," Sarah said, printing the tag. "Mr. Sterling says that if we have the space, we should share it. It makes for a happier flight." Maya took her boarding pass. "Thank you. You have no idea how much that means." "My pleasure," Sarah said. "Oh, and if you have time, check out the mural in the main hall. It's beautiful." Maya walked toward the hall. She knew the mural. She had spent 3 weeks painting it often, working through the night after the terminal closed. It covered the entire west wall. It was a kaleidoscope of faces, every race, every age, every background. A businessman in a suit helping a backpacker with a map. A pilot high-fiving a child. And in the center, a plane taking off its contrails, turning into a flock of birds. At the bottom corner, there was a small dedication plaque. "In a world where you can fly anywhere, be kind. MS." As she stood there, she heard a commotion near the entrance. Her heart spiked for a second. Was it happening again? She turned to look. It wasn't a fight. It was a crowd of people surrounding a tall man in a charcoal suit, shaking his hand, taking selfies. It was Reginald. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards. He was walking through the terminal, shaking hands with the janitorial staff, talking to the TSA agents. He saw Maya across the hall and winked. He walked over to her. "How's the inspection director?" he asked, his voice low. "Check-in took 45 seconds. Maya reported, smiling. "Agent Sarah offered me extra space without me asking. The atmosphere is light." "Good." Reginald nodded. "By the way, I got a call from the prison governor today." Maya's smile faded slightly. "Patricia. She wants to send you a letter," Reginald said, apologizing. "She's working in the prison library now. says she finally understands what it feels like to be powerless. She can keep the letter, Maya said softly. I don't need her apology. Her absence is enough. And van der Waal? Reginald asked. I saw the news, Maya replied. Chapter 11. Bankruptcy, But actually, he had everything, and he threw it away because he couldn't stand waiting in a line. Karma is a mirror, Reginald said, putting his arm around her shoulders. It reflects exactly what you put in front of it. They walked together toward the gate. You know, Maya said, I booked economy again. I know. Reginald chuckled. I saw the manifest. Seat 42B. Why? Because, Maya said, looking at the diverse crowd of people boarding the plane, families laughing, students chatting, business people working. That's where the real stories are. And besides, someone needs to test if the new coffee blend is actually drinkable. It is, Reginald promised. I picked the beans myself. Then I'll see you in London, Dad. Safe flight, Maya. Maya watched her father head toward his next meeting. Then she turned and joined the line for Group 4. She didn't skip the line. She didn't wave her obsidian pass. She stood behind a mother struggling with a stroller and a crying baby. Here, Maya said, stepping forward. Let me help you with that bag. The mother looked up, exhausted and grateful. Oh, thank you. You're an angel. No. Maya smiled, lifting the bag onto her shoulder. Just a passenger. She walked down the jet bridge, not as a victim, not as a princess, but as a leader who knew that the only way to truly fly was to lift others up with you. Maya Sterling didn't just get revenge. She revolutionized an entire industry. She proved that while money can buy a first-class ticket, it can't buy class, and it certainly can't buy character. Patricia and the van der Waals lost everything because they underestimated the power of dignity, while Maya and Reginald built a legacy by championing it. It's a powerful reminder. You never know who you are talking to, so treat everyone with the respect you would want for yourself. The world is smaller than you think, and karma is always watching. If this story of justice and redemption inspired you, please hit that like button. It helps us bring more of these stories to life. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder that good things happen to good people, and subscribe for more incredible stories of karma striking back. Thanks for watching and fly safe.